Okay, thank you, Mike, and thank everyone for, as Mike said, short notice and joining us. Obviously, a lot going on the last week around the waiver for Kyle. We didn't take that lightly. A lot of discussion internally. I'm proud of our team and how we took the due diligence to work through this process, but ultimately landed at giving Kyle a waiver, so he'll be eligible for the playoffs going forward. And essentially, our decision making was, although we had the inclement weather in Indy as well as Charlotte, Kyle made every attempt to get to Charlotte. He was standing in the pit box with his helmet on, ready to go. And unfortunately, we had weather in Charlotte as well, and we weren't fortunate enough to get the race going again. So that's how we landed at our decision. As we went through this process, you look at the waiver, this was without a doubt uncharted waters. In the past, those waivers have been given mostly for medical reasons or situations where drivers were suspended from our event, and those waivers were granted fairly quickly. This one, again, was unprecedented in the fact that we had a driver miss one of our races, one of our cup races, a championship event, to be at another event. So that's why it took as long as it did. I'm proud of our process. I'm proud of the team here at NASCAR and the way we worked through that. And we felt like the time that it took, roughly a week, was exactly what we needed to get to the right decision.
Thank you, Elton. If you have a question for Elton, please raise your hand. We'll get to several, and we'll start with Jim. Jim.
Hey, Elton, how are you?
Good.
Just a question, kind of a two-part question. Number one, would you consider this a close call in any way? And as kind of a follow-up, the reason I asked that is you have, in fairness, granted far more waivers than you guys have denied in the past. And some could even say that you kind of facilitated Kyle's efforts. I mean, there was the movement of the start time of the All-Star race and so forth. And I just wondered, when it came down to the nuts and bolts, was this really a close decision?
Well, I think it was in uncharted waters, as I said earlier. So the decision-making process, it took the time it did to make sure that we got this right. And as I hit on earlier, the reason the waiver is in place, or one of the reasons it's in place, is to give our fans some certainty that if they buy a ticket to come and watch our athletes and our stars perform, that they're going to see them. So the prior precedent that was set with allowing waivers, those were quick decisions, as I said earlier. This one was unique in the fact that obviously Kyle raced with another series and wasn't there to start our event. As far as it being close, I don't know. There was different views from different people, which I commend our process, proud of our team, and everyone had a view on it. And the ultimate decision that we wanted to get to was the right decision. And we feel like we got there. We're looking forward to getting to Atlanta, just kick our playoffs and have one of the sport's biggest stars contending for a championship.
And just one quick follow-up. Do you think that anything that resulted out of today would have you relook at your waiver rules in the future?
I don't think so. We will, in the off season, like we always do with rules, we'll revisit, but the rule book is very clear. You either grant the waiver or you don't. Anything in between that would have been not really followed by our rule books. And as we've said before, that's a guideline for us to look at. Again, we didn't take this lightly. That's why it took the time to get to the decision that we did. But this one was unique. We'll continue to look at it. A lot of things that we learned from this process. I do want to say that I want to commend the team at Hendrick Motorsports, Jeff Andrews, working very closely with them on the timelines through the All-Star race. All the collaboration was really good. At no point did we, before 6:20-ish on Sunday night, the green flag dropping at the 600 was anyone led to believe that they 100% would get a waiver. And you can't make that decision prior to. You've got to let the event unfold, let the process take its course, and that's exactly what we did. We felt like the double is great. It's great for motorsports. It's great for NASCAR. We were all looking forward to having Kyle land in the ball field there at Charlotte, get out of a helicopter, go get in his car, and hopefully compete and complete the 1,100 miles. But that didn't work out that way. That didn't unfold for the obvious reasons that we know about.
Thank you very much, Elton.
Next, we'll go to Bob Hawkers.
Yeah, Elton, I mean, weather isn't a surprise, so why couldn't that decision have been made before? Like, if it seems pretty simple. If weather happens, what's going to be the decision?
Well, I think, Bob, if you look at it again, you let the process unfold. There wasn't a waiver needed prior to, again, 6:22 green flag Sunday night in Charlotte. So a lot of that is hypotheticals. What if this, what if that? We had gone through some of them, but again, you let the process take its course. A lot of things could have happened in between. Weather just happened to be the one that was in front of us on this particular situation. So at no point would we grant any waivers prior to that. That would not have been the process.
And do you feel like, have you set a precedent that if, somebody is at another event and they make an effort to come back to get to your race, that will be enough to get a waiver? Or is the Indy 500 a different circumstance than other events?
I think you hit the nails on the head there, Bob. I mean, Indy is a big race. Obviously, the Coke 600 is a huge race for us as well. But I think if you look in motorsports in general, the Indy 500 is it's a big event. We embrace the double. We think it's great. We want to see other drivers, have that opportunity. So we have to, just make sure that we're looking out first and foremost for the fans that, again, buy the ticket, that were here in Charlotte, and felt like Kyle and the team gave every effort to be able to get here. And he was ready to go, again, had his helmet on. And unfortunately, we're not able to get going and getting back in the car. So again, I know it's a little bit of a cliche, but every situation is different. And I feel like that we have the parameters in our rule book and the team here at the R&D Center to ultimately make the best decision. And that's what we're hired to do.
Next, we'll go to Dustin Long. Go ahead, Dustin.
Hey, Elton, a couple of things. At the end of the day, why didn't you guys deny it? I mean, the way the rule book is written, and obviously I know it's, you guys can make that call, but he missed the start of the race, and they had said ahead of time the 600 was the priority. They had told everybody that that's what the priority was. I'm guessing, led you guys to believe the 600 was the priority, and then suddenly they don't show up when the green flag falls. Why should you guys bail them out?
I think that's a great question, Dustin. I would look at it as the game, as we went into that weekend, all communication with HMS was their priority. That was their day job. And unfortunately, the weather situation threw them a curveball, threw the industry a curveball, and something that we had to deal with. But ultimately, the effort that they made without the weather, they're going to be there. We feel confident that was going to happen. To not have Kyle Larson in our playoff and give our fans the opportunity to see him race for a championship and compete against some of the best drivers in the world, at the end of the day, didn't feel like that's the right decision for us to make. And we didn't. We felt like we got to the right spot.
And also one other thing, Elton, was there a consideration to penalizing the team, whether some playoff points or something like that, because I mean, look, you guys can do whatever you want, but to kind of get the message across, hey, we're going to grant you the waiver. We don't appreciate how things were done in one sense, and so you're going to get it, but you're gonna pay a penalty for this unique circumstance.
Again, everything was on the table. But if you look at the rule book, the two options were granted or not to grant it. And anything in between that or outside of that would have been us digging deep into the rule book to do something that it just didn't feel right to do that. So again, every effort was made with all good intentions. Again, I go back to this, like all of our fans were looking forward to seeing Kyle compete in both the Indy 500 and the Coke 600, and that didn't work out.
Thank you.
So,
We'll take two more. Trey Downey and Greg Engel. Go ahead, Trey.
Hey, Elton, you've mentioned that every effort was made and he was on pit road with his helmet on, ready to get in. Even though the rule is to be there for the start of the race, do you think that this is a quicker or easier call if the race gets back going and he races in the 600?
not really. I don't think so. I think, we had no control over the weather. We're an outdoor sport. So the way that unfolded, once they didn't start the race, some decisions obviously were made on their side. If you want to look at it, that there was some penalty, there was. There was an opportunity there for the 5 car and Kyle to gain, roughly 8 playoff points by winning the race and winning each stage, and also padding his point lead in the regular season that would ultimately get him 15 additional points. So time will tell if those potential 23 points that were on the table that he didn't get, how that will unfold as we go through the playoffs. So there was a point penalty for him, and we don't feel like from our side that any other additional penalty or any type of asterisk beside it would have been the right way moving forward.
And did Hendrick at all ask on that Sunday when the decision was being made that it was clear that he was going to miss the race? Did they request a waiver at that point or ask what the decision might be before that decision was officially made?
No, we didn't. Again, those decisions, and I keep going back to this because you could ask right up until 6 o'clock before we went green at Charlotte, but the answer would have been the same thing. You got to let the process unfold. The situation likely wouldn't have changed just due to the timing of being able to get there. But until we went green and he wasn't in the 5 car, from that point forward, you start working through the waiver process. So again, I'm really proud of our team here at NASCAR, and this was a NASCAR decision and one that wasn't taken lightly, as I said earlier. And but ultimately, we felt like we got to the right decision, the best decision for our fans, and ultimately they're ones that pay all of our bills.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Greg.
Elton, thanks for jumping on with us.
Sure.
I know it's hard to jump in this pool. As the decision, the longer it took to make this decision, the more noise was coming out. And yes, the fans pay our bills, but man, these guys make a lot of noise. There was conspiracy theories and all the reasons that we were waiting for this. How hard was it to tune out that noise? And I'll have a quick follow-up.
It wasn't really difficult, Greg, to be honest with you. I mean, I commend, John Probst and his leadership here at the R&D Center, and we stayed the course. We had our internal meetings. We have more internal meetings. We continue to have dialogue around it. And then the other part of it is we're in front of us was a race at Worldwide Technology Raceway that we're all getting prepared for. So, but again, the number one thing was to get to the right decision, take the time. It felt like the time that it took was the right amount of time to get to the right decision.
And just to confirm, you're not going to change the rules about these waivers, but it's still going to be sort of a case by case basis. I mean, injuries are going to be almost no brainers. And then, but when you have something come up like this, it's going to be more of like a case by case basis.
Well, what I would say, Greg, is that we're going to look at it, take a deeper dive. But as we sit here today, we feel like we have, language in the rule book that would support, obviously, giving the waiver and B, not giving the waiver. So it's in the rule book. If there's something we feel like and what we've learned from this process that we need to, add some language or delete some language, we'll do that. But as we sit here today, we don't feel like we need to do anything at the moment. But again, there's a long list of rules that as you go through the season, we talk about, we put them on the agenda for the off season, and we'll do that with this one as well.
And it's been a great season so far. Thank you, sir.
It's been
Appreciate it.
absolutely, yeah, phenomenal. I mean, yes, absolutely.
And then we'll wrap with Danielle Trotta. Go ahead, Danielle.
Hi, Elton. Thanks for the time. We're about to hop on Sirius, so if you could just indulge and help me a little bit with some of the calls I think we'll receive from drivers that have been on the show, fans that were adamant Larson should not get a waiver. Their one sticking point is that he made a choice, that he chose to be in Indianapolis and miss the start of Charlotte. Could you help me as to an answer from NASCAR's point on that question?
Yeah, that's a great question, Danielle. And I think again, as you go through the process, they did make a choice. I think you look at, again, as I hit on earlier, there was a choice to leave some points on the table. That they made that decision to stay in Indy. We wish that they would have been in Charlotte, but we understood and why that decision was made. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I keep going back to this because this is the path that we were on. Ultimately, he got to Charlotte, was ready to go, would have raced 151 laps or so there to conclude the Coke 600, and we felt like that they gave the best effort to do what we needed to do for our fans in Charlotte.